What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, looks like the Zelda 40th anniversary is getting started early, and not because Nintendo went out and announced things. It appears stuff just started leaking online, and now we have an idea as to some of Nintendo's plans going towards the big Zelda blowout, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony coming to the table with their own limited edition products, this around Wolverine, and actually introducing something we have not had yet with the PlayStation 5 and the PS5 Pro. And we have Microsoft in the news because it turns out a prototype controller of theirs just randomly sold online, and someone showed up to Reddit with the receipts, and now there's a whole bunch of questions as to what exactly happened here, but we'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So just know, even if you don't get a notification in the morning, there's probably a video to check out here on YouTube, and then also here on Spotify with full video and audio available. And we're going to start today with Grand Theft Auto 6. Of course, a lot of discussion around the Netflix reveal for this game, because it's, of course, behind a paywall, but it'll be on YouTube, 6 hours later or something. However, it has been up for pre-order for quite some time, and Strauss Zelnick did talk with CNBC in a segment about this, and it turns out, yeah, the $100 version is selling better than the standard $80 edition. This we can see. This is over on IGN, where when asked about this, he says, actually, it is skewing more to the premium side. That might be a reflection of the fact that the most avid consumers are the ones who are pre-ordering right now. And I mean, that's the logic, obviously. If you are buying the game this far in advance without seeing gameplay, you've already decided you were buying it a while ago. And in doing so, you've decided probably you're getting the big collector's edition or, whatever expensive thing they show up with. And they really didn't show up with anything more expensive than $100. So there you go. There's an Ultimate Edition, and it seems like people are rolling out. And yeah, when asked further about what does that have exactly versus the other, Strauss Zelnick just said, more content. Yep, there you go. That, to me, the Ultimate Edition is probably what most people are going to look at as really the edition to get for GTA 6. Also, we had a random shadow drop yesterday. This over on Gamatsu. Aspyr has announced and released Lord of the Rings War in the North Legacy Edition. What? It's a remastered version of Snowblind Studios' 2011 released action RPG. All right, so I did not play this back in the day on the Xbox 360 or the PS3. It is out now, though, for PS5, Xbox Series, Switch 2, Switch, and PC. That's actually through Steam, Epic Game Store, and GOG. It's priced at $19.99. Now, apparently in Europe, the Switch 2 and Switch versions will launch. They say August 18th. That's a typo. It's actually coming out in October, so I don't know what the deal is there, but this, I saw Lord of the Rings. I initially saw that headline. I was like, wait a minute, Aspyr, old Lord of the Rings, is it Two Towers or is it the Return of the King? Like from the PS2 and the Xbox, that kind of era? No, those are the ones I was thinking of, and I'm not alone because I saw many comments underneath of these announcements like, oh, when are we going to get those? Those were awesome. This, unfortunately, I'm just not that familiar with. I didn't play it back then, so let me know in the comments if you were really excited to see this and if this was actually a good game and worth checking out. Also, Remedy did talk with investors about a number of different things, of course, stuff from the financial side. It turns out Alan Wake 2 has now crossed 3 million copies sold. A lot of excitement, it seems, and interest for Control Resonance that's coming up soon. But Max Payne 1 and 2, remember those? The remakes? Those came up, and unfortunately, they weren't able to say much. This we could see was quoted. This is over on Respawn First, saying there's a lot of questions concerning Max Payne. On that game, Rockstar Games is handling the publishing side, so we can't comment on those questions. Great news. We'll have to keep an eye on Netflix then to see when I mean, in this case, Rockstar, I think with Max Payne 1 and 2, obviously they're not really going to talk about it, I figure, much until after GTA 6, and then probably after whatever the next GTA Online is, to kind of clear up their marketing pipeline. So I'm thinking next year for Max Payne 1 and 2, and with the way they move with Rockstar and Take-Two, probably not at the Game Awards, maybe at a Sony State of Play at some point, or they just show up on social media and are like, hey, here's Max Payne 1 and 2, the remake, this is what it looks like, here's the plan for release. At least that's the hope, but hopefully not too much longer, because GTA 6, Sure, I'm sure it's gonna be a great game, people are excited, but man, I'm really curious to see what these Max Payne remakes look like. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a major leak that's now hit Nintendo, and it has to be weeks even before they were setting up to reveal these. Now, it does appear that these photos have been circulating behind the scenes as some, like Necro Felipe, were making reference to them. I think Nintendo was as well, that they had seen these, and they were trying to recreate like the 40th anniversary logo and describing some of this stuff. But now they are public. From what I saw, they just kind of appeared on Reddit, and they were pulled from, it looked like a Chinese forum, and it seemed like some were even selling some of these boxes, the marketing for it, like the Pro Controller and the Switch 2 Legend of Zelda Edition system. Yeah, so let's start here. We'll take a look at the boxing. Now, this is for the Pro Controller, as we had an initial shot of it that was posted on Reddit. Then Necro Felipe went further and posted a box with a bunch of boxes in it. Well, they were crushed down, but the Legend of Zelda Pro Controller for the Switch 2. It does have the 40th anniversary logo right there at the top right. It's important to note that the Pro Controller for the Switch 2 and the Switch 2 system itself are not Ocarina of Time themed. This is specifically for the Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary, all right? So again, interesting the way that Nintendo, I think, is going to handle this. Remember, Ocarina of Time is part of the anniversary celebration, not like the big banner for it. I do still think they're going to treat the movie next year in 2027 as the big, like, climactic banner blowout release, kind of similar to what they said about the Mario anniversary with the movie there. But still, the Pro Controller, I think, looks pretty good. Now, initially, at first glance, I will say, I saw that, I see that green handle side. I'm like, I don't know. It kind of feels out of place. But then after seeing more shots, as Necro Felipe shared, the back of the box, or it kind of be the side, again, crushed down. It's technically the back of this part. But it actually fades from that dark gray or black from one side of the Pro Controller to green. I think that actually is a really cool effect. On the back, though, you can see the small 8-bit version of Link from the NES, and it looks like he's kind of shooting the sword there past the Switch 2 logo. Nice little touch, again, to have that there, but the Pro Controller, I think, looks great. The kind of, again, fading from the black into, like, the gold accents, the big crest there at the top, and you even have that right thumbstick. It looks like it has kind of the gold coloring on it as well to go along with it, so that, they got me for the Pro Controller, okay? I'm in on that. Now, the system, okay, so we have a crushed down box here that was once again shared on Reddit, but then also Necro Felipe had another shot of it here. Man, the system looks good. I don't need another Switch 2. I don't think I'm going to buy another Switch 2. I would like the dock, and I would like the Joy-Cons, which basically I think makes up the entirety of it anyway. Although I think it seems like there might be some back etchings, again, kind of hard to see here, on the Switch 2 body itself. We have seen Nintendo in the past sell the docks separately. They've sold the Joy-Con separately. So bare minimum, I think they will sell the Joy-Cons by themselves. And I think they look awesome. I would be picking that up immediately. The dock, though, that's the big question mark, because I think that is probably the best looking dock they've made so far. It looks awesome. Again, the big Triforce right there in the middle, and it's like half gold, half just kind of the standard like grayish color. And it's sort of broken up in that diagonal format so that it follows along with the Triforce. Man, really, really cool. I think anyway, good looking system there. Good looking setup with that and the Pro Controller. But now we're kind of sitting here going, okay, all this just sort of leaked out. It seems like it's from a warehouse or a factory as they're working to fold up, put all this stuff together. It is important to note that while this looks pretty legit, and I think it is, it's possible that this is a very elaborate fake. It's possible. I don't think it's likely. And the reason I say that, obviously, is AI is very good. People have photoshopped and printed out stuff in the past just to get a rise out of the internet. But we also haven't seen the hardware itself, the controller or the system. This would just be the packaging materials that is a lot easier to fake than actually showing up with the Pro Controller itself, and they're like, here it is. I guess now the question comes down to, when is Nintendo going to be showing this off? It seems like it makes sense to have a 40th anniversary direct. I think that's what most of us are expecting, but they very well could have a single direct in September, and this is all just kind of part of that as they then work to date Ocarina of Time. But it feels like they have more to talk about with the movie, and I'm sure some other aspects to it. Maybe an NSO drop with Twilight Princess. Maybe something that would be like one of those weird, like the Mario 35 thing that they did. Maybe they want to do something here with Zelda and have a big multiplayer mode for NSO. A dungeon maker, that would be cool. There's a lot of fun stuff they can do. And then obviously merchandise, I'm sure more collaborations with other brands. So because of all this stuff, it feels like they could have just a Zelda Direct, but then also have a general Direct later on or even before. So I do think it's possible that a Zelda Direct could happen before the end of this month, but I also think most likely it falls into September. However, that was the question I had for the poll, the audience, and we'll take a look at that later on in the show. Next up, let's talk about Sony, as they did announce some, get this, physical products. I know it's crazy, but we do have a couple of new controllers, some console covers for not only just the standard PS5, but also the PS5 Pro, which is something I've been complaining about for a while, is that they really haven't had any customization options for the Pro system. Now it seems like they do, and it's to go alongside of Wolverine, and why wouldn't they do that? It's good marketing, obviously, to have special edition stuff, especially next to a Marvel property right now with how big Spider-Man is currently with Brand New Day, but also Wolverine, very popular. So yes, if you could put Wolverine on your system, you should probably take that opportunity, even though I will say I think they might have overdone it a touch with the cover, but we'll get to that in a moment. We can take a look, though, over on PlayStation Blog. Now, we do have the controller, which we'll start there, right? So there's two different ones. There's the Wolverine Battle Yellow Limited Edition. It is priced at $85, all right, DualSense wireless controller. And then we have the yellow one will be sold just across the board, select retailers, the whole thing, alongside of the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition. That's the Battle Yellow Limited Edition bundle. That one is $650, okay? Everything else, though, going forward, is exclusively available through the direct PlayStation Store. That includes all the console covers. So there's a Battle Yellow Limited Edition cover. There's the Battle Yellow Limited Edition cover for the PS5 Pro. And then the Adamantium Limited Edition cover for the Pro. And we have an Adamantium Limited Edition DualSense wireless controller, which is basically the silver controller here, okay? So I'm looking at these setups. I think out of the controllers, I like the yellow one more. All right, I do. And I mean, the slash mark across the front there where it's yellow, but then also kind of the scuffing off to the right and then the top left, and even down to like the yellow symbols there with square, triangle, circle, and cross. It looks good. I do. I like the look of that one. Okay, now for the system itself. You know, I saw this and I said, I get why you would put Wolverine on your system. I feel like it's a little too much. I think it would have been better if it was just implied that Wolverine just lit up your system, like just slashed up your system and kept it moving. I sort of like that more minimalistic, I guess, look to it. But here's the thing, okay? So Wolverine aside, I do think the slash marks are done very, very well because in the video, you can see through it. So they must have, I guess, just clear plastic, and you can even see the fans spinning on the PS5. And yes, they do have one, or at least one that matches up. So if you have the disc drive, it's there. So hey, shout out to Sony. They're recognizing the disc drive owners out there with this. But hey, I've been asking for PS5 covers for a while. It's just, they got to put Wolverine. It's fine, I guess. I think I'm going with the controller here. To me, it's good to know that Sony at least has the ability, I guess, to make a PS5 Pro cover. They of course have had the ability, but at least now they feel the need to do it. But I think right now I'm just going with the yellow controller. I do like the look of it quite a bit. Let me know though if you're picking up any of this alongside of Wolverine. For Wolverine, of course I'm getting it physically, and I guess we'll do a whole unboxing on it to scare Sony a little bit with it. We'll see. Next up, let's talk about a very odd situation for Microsoft because they also had a controller leak out. This, though, wasn't necessarily through images that were snapped, say, in manufacturing. It appears somebody just bought it from a secondhand site and then went to Reddit trying to identify what they just bought. Now, they do say they bought it for $200, so I guess whoever was selling it kind of knew what they had, but also were willing to offload it for what typically would be the retail price for the Xbox Elite Series 3 controller. Yeah, take a look at some of the images that were shared on Reddit. Now, the person says they bought it on OfferUp. I guess they just randomly came across and like, that's an interesting looking controller. Or maybe they thought they were just buying like a Series 2 Elite controller. But as they were going through it, they realized that there is quite a bit more here than was supposed to be. So what's interesting about the series, because we saw this with like the patent work or the work that was done through regulators, and they have images of it, right? So it looked like we had seen one with the scroll wheels on the bottom, the whole thing. This person says, yeah, that's actually on here. Like, they have all of that. So the rest of the stuff that we saw back in May was that it was Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth, a 3.5 millimeter jack, interchangeable D-pad, paddles, 2 scroll wheels, and trigger locks, and it has a new pairing button that can switch between local and cloud mode to reduce latency. All this seemed to be shown kind of in these images, so I have no idea how this got out there other than, I guess, somebody who had worked at Microsoft. Although, hey, we talk about a lot of the layoffs that were happening within Microsoft. Yeah, maybe you're somewhat disgruntled as an employee and you're leaving and oh yeah, I still have this prototype thing. I'll just sell it to get some money. I mean, that really could just be the origin story of somebody finding this on OfferUp and then showing it off online. So it'd be interesting if this never came out and this person just has this prototype controller that's just a piece of history. It does seem like just how far they've gone so far with a lot of the stuff with the Elite Series 3 from what we've heard, that it would be coming out. And I do wonder if Gamescom coming up here at the end of this month is a place for Microsoft to announce it, as they have done announcements with like accessories and some games at Gamescom. It wouldn't shock me if that's where it was and they were setting it up for release this holiday season. So they apparently keep an eye on OfferUp to find random pieces of like prototype history, in this case, an Xbox Elite Series 3 controller. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Star Wars Zero Company, as previews went live yesterday, and people were pretty positive on this and at times downright shocked by what they were seeing. So there were many previews. IGN had a Game Rant. I saw SkillUp had a very good one. And I went through and just picked out a couple of interesting things. You could follow up further with some of these different previews, video form, to see more about the game. But starting from the top here, it is, of course, very much modeled after XCOM. In fact, it's very, very strong in terms of the XCOM style gameplay, but they all said it was more approachable, so I don't know if it's just more convenient in some aspects or the controls are set up a bit better, specifically for like controller play, but in this case, it is just more approachable and I guess easier to grasp some of the concepts for it. They did say, though, surprising in terms of the level of production. Like, they're saying a super, super high production value here with the story and the cutscenes. I mean, it seemed like the story itself was way more interesting than they were expecting, and the voice acting, the mocap, everything about it was really well done. So that's, I don't know, maybe I was just looking at this game as, I'll say lower budget, but like for some of these tactical based games, you phone some of it in. Obviously, because yeah, it's give and take. It's like, where are you going to put some of the resources typically into the gameplay side and stuff? In this case, I get maybe they were working with a bigger budget than I was expecting here. So that's good. Even visually speaking, it looks awesome. I mean, even in game, right, where you see the different environments around them. While they were saying the environments or the fields of battle were a little smaller than expected, I mean, it looks really, really sharp, leans heavily into the lore and setting. So I think Clone Wars is what it seemed to be like really leaning into here, which is awesome. Permadeath, while it can be, I guess, turned off or on, it does appear that it plays into that where you can have a story character die in a battle, permadeath, they're gone, and the cutscenes will still kind of play out, but in different ways. So I guess you'd want to go through the game a couple of times to see what happens if a key character in a certain cutscene dies early on. So that is actually really interesting. Your main character, though, is protected. Go figure. If your main character dies, then I guess it's game over. So, but you do have bonds that you make with different characters. All this matters, by the way, the relationships, whether they like you or hate you. All of that plays into different stories or where these characters end up at the end. No fog of war, though. This was mentioned, I think, by almost everybody, and that means you don't have kind of this risk of unknown outside of what you can see exactly there. So reduces the tension a bit, I guess, for that. And the mission variety is brought up as kind of a negative sense. It boils down to what you'd expect, right? You eliminate enemies, you can reach objective points, there's evacuations. It's kind of what you've seen before in other tactical-based games. August 27th, though. So a few more weeks, this game will be out. It's one that's on my radar, but it also might be one that goes into the backlog a bit, and like I keep an eye on it, maybe for a sale later on. It's just there's a lot of stuff coming out here, especially as we get into September. It's gonna be all over the place. So unfortunately, this might be one that I put on the back burner, but might check out maybe towards the end of the year, because usually around like that midway through December and then going into the first half of January, I'll look back on that year and pick out a couple of games, try to catch up on. This might be one of those. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, will there be a Zelda Direct this month? Okay, 64% just like, no, we're 12 days in. There's not gonna be a Zelda Direct, all right? 36% say yes. So here's the thing, right? They also have Fire Emblem, although I don't think they're waiting until Fire Emblem comes out to talk about Zelda, because that would be, I'm thinking about Zelda coming out in November. I do believe that's when Ocarina of Time is releasing. It's like, man, you want to give retail partners like less than 2 months for that? I think that that's a release that I'm sure the retail partners, and then you have a Pro Controller and a system. Like, there's a lot of stuff logistically trying to line this up for release. So I feel like you want more time than that, but how much more time could you give them unless you have a Direct next week? Possible. But I do think it is more likely that, it's funny, you know, I mentioned, it's going to come out the same week of Grand Theft Auto 6, or at least the week before, I think, in November. Wouldn't it be interesting if they had their Direct either the week before or even the week during that whole Netflix GTA 6 thing? It's like Zelda 40th Anniversary Direct, then GTA 6 for Netflix. That would be an insane week for gaming coverage. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Jubei, who says, from 1997 to 2001, Square released Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, and 10. I will tell you, that was a crazy jump, because 9 came out like a year before 10. So think about going from Final Fantasy 9 on the PS1 to Final Fantasy 10 on the PS2. That was a jump, like visually. We talk about next gen like releases and how back then it was much more substantial than now. And sometimes people kind of roll their eyes like, was it? Yeah, like going from 9 to 10 was craziness. I mean, 9 still looked pretty good on the PS1. Clearly, that's around the time where they had really mastered that hardware and got a lot out of it. And the cutscenes would still hit. You know, you go from in-game to cutscene, you would definitely know it. But man, when that initial scene with Tidus and doing Blitzball and Final Fantasy X hit with like the heavy rock music, that was something else. And then the magic of the DVD and the PS2 that apparently could navigate missiles for war. It was wild stuff back then. But that though, you're right with Square Enix being able to release, I mean, back to back Final Fantasies, and now you end up waiting like 5 or 6 years minimum to get the next big release. So yeah, in terms of the younger generation keeping up with it and being interested, it's just a lot more difficult for these companies to keep doing that like they were back in the PS1 or even PS2 days. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear about how Nintendo is like the last holdout now, especially when it comes to physical games. I did a whole video looking into that, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.